us. Send us your questions. Post your comments on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter at PattiMariaMcGee.com.
Thank you. We are back with part 2 of our program, Conversations on Race with Dr. Lundon Jackson. We have our co-host, Dr. Margaret Norris, all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. Our co-host, special co-host today, Dr. Angela Williams. We have our friend and our co-host, Inaj Leoto, and my cousin and our co-producer on this show, Dr. Noelle Mubaira, who is a woman in STEM like Dr. Jackson. So cousin, in our last program, we didn't get to your question. So we're going to start off with your question for Lundon Jackson.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Jackson. It's amazing the path that your career has been able to take. You really must be a thought leader. Looking forward to seeing and reading some of your work. And I've been doing some research of my own around the world of content creating. It's making Forbes magazine, anything upwards of 10K of in subscribership, can start to bring some checks in. And I had a channel on Periscope, just around twice a week, just around different topics along the lines of my book, along the lines of just my life experience. And as I looked into content creating on YouTube, I found there seems to be some disparities in the rates that some content creators are paid versus others. So it seems to be divided along racial lines. Could you speak to that?
I can definitely speak probably more broader, meaning I think it's not an isolated event. I think we see it even probably in every industry you can name, honestly. Whether it's the entertainment industry or movies, actors, lawyers, I think that is just a systemic issue in every industry where POCs, women of color, are not paid, not brought to the forefront overall. So it's one of those things where I can't really speak too much on that side of the YouTube house or Google house because I'm more of in the writing the content part of it. But I think just as, looking at the industry and doing the competitive analysis and things like that, and also just living in this world, it is a systemic issue. You name the industry, we're underpaid, we're undervalued.
Dr. Jackson, before we go on, I want to switch gears because this is a whole nother show. And what I would love is if you could talk about, because the title of the show is Conversations on Race, and you are in an interracial marriage. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to us about your love and your life and what it's like for you dealing in that world of having an interracial relationship, interracial marriage? How is that as we have this conversation on race? Because all women want to find love. All women want to have this. You have this storybook, amazing, beautiful, wonderful relationship, and we all want that. So have you had to deal with racism in your marriage?
Yeah, I've had to deal with it. Definitely. I think it's been a journey for us. I think, just the two of us together, we click. We click because we honestly have the same foundations and a lot of the same experiences. But it's also been a journey of kind of educating him on a lot of these things. And also me using his privilege to get some of the things. Like, there's a reason why usually in my meetings, I got a picture of him in the background. Uh, we're planning on going to the East Coast for a couple of weeks to visit his family and stay in New York. And we're going to find an Airbnb. He already knows he needs to open up an Airbnb account and be that POC and not me. When we're looking for an apartment, the apartment we live in, or we've moved several times in the past few years, he's the person in front of me. And so when we go to restaurants, they would sit us by the bathroom, and he didn't notice it the first time, but now he knows. There's just been so many experiences where he's now had this awareness, but also we both use his privilege to get to navigate this world. But when it's just the two of us, it's one of those things where, it sounds corny, where we're just two people that kind of click. But when we step outside, every time we go to Costco, or is this together? Are you together? We're together. Like, why would we not be together? So, yeah.
Well, and I've had that experience. I was in a bank one time and I was in line, and some other African-American person got in line behind me, and the manager was like, "So, can I help you?" And I'm like, that's a complete and total stranger. How would you feel if I said that to you? And, so people, they go through life without, I think sometimes, if they're those microaggressions, they don't notice. But so you got married in Washington, was that Washington, D.C.?
Washington, D.C., yeah.
Tell us about what led you to accept that marriage proposal, and how you planned and how you executed that beautiful, amazing wedding.
I did absolutely nothing. I just showed up that day.
There you go.
I mean, honestly, it was one of those things where we were together at that point for 5 years. I was never someone to dream about weddings growing up. My dad wanted a boy. So I was very much a tomboy growing up. I never thought, I even had my dress made 2 days before our wedding day. My husband figured it out. Like, he found somebody, and we paid the package, and they said, "Where do you want to get married?" We said Union Station. We got married on June 12th, which was Loving's Day, the 52nd anniversary of interracial couples being by the Supreme Court approving that. But yeah, I just showed up that day. It was supposed to just be the two of us, but Jay made me invite our parents, so they were there. But yeah, I literally just showed up that day.
Well, if you just had that dress made, and if you all haven't checked out Dr. Lundon Jackson online, Dr. Jackson, why don't you tell us what your social media platforms are so everyone can subscribe and follow you? Yeah,
I only have the Twitter. So my handle is Dr. Lundon, DrLundon. And of course, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm like the only Lundon Jackson, so I'm easy to find there.
Okay, well, we are so grateful to have you. We have a few more participants on our podcast, so we would love to accept any questions, comments. If you want to participate, just raise your hand, and Sharon will open up your mic. Co-host, why don't you go ahead and weigh in?
Well, I have a question for you, Dr. Lundon. Enjoying every single moment of this interview. Patti mentioned that you love traveling. And so I'm interested in what it's been like for you as a couple, as you've traveled abroad. How have you been received in various countries? And if you can just kind of speak to that for a moment.
Yeah, I honestly haven't traveled too much overseas with Jay. I usually go solo or with my mom, but the main, probably biggest experiences is, again, using his privilege and navigating that. Quite honestly, I've always told people that whenever I travel overseas or outside the U.S., that privilege of being U.S. and speaking English is definitely something that's valued. And I bring that up because I have many friends that are from the continent, And when we see each other or travel together, there is a different reaction. So, me being with my white husband, there's definitely a privilege. But at the end of the day, it's almost the same experience if I were by myself, because I have the US passport and I don't have the accents, or I have the California accent. But I can't, probably the overt racism that I've felt traveling has been when I've been by myself and with my mother. So it's actually, to short answer, it's been a benefit to travel with him, even though it's been to like Iceland and Puerto Rico and things like that. But going overseas, it's been mostly with myself or with my mother.
Thank you.
So I saw some pictures of you and your husband. Was that in Thailand or somewhere in Southeast Asia, and you were eating street food off of skewers?
Yeah, that was probably the first experience. I was trying to explain to Jay that the first time I went to Bangkok by myself, that was my first international trip. And this was back in 2012. And I didn't understand why random people were coming to me to take pictures of me. Because when I travel, especially by myself, I wear big sunglasses because I don't need people seeing the fear in my eye, because I'm by myself and like on a different country and I don't speak the language. So I wear these big glasses, usually a big hat, very incognito. And I didn't understand why I would have, everywhere I went, it was like pictures. People wanted to take a picture with me. And at first I was like, oh, okay, they must think I'm a celebrity or whatever. But then after probably 2 days of that, I was like, I feel like an animal in a zoo or something, where it's just like, it would never dawn on me to see a random person on the street and like take a picture with them. I didn't, and so it's kind of like that experience. But looping it back, when I traveled with Jay to Thailand and Cambodia and Vietnam, Southeast Asian, I don't know, like they're very welcoming folks. But I had less people coming to me, except for the one time. There was one time we landed in the airport and someone randomly came up to me. And I saw Jay's reaction. He was like, oh, that's what you were talking about. That is weird. I was like, yes, that is what I'm trying to explain. But that was just a wonderful experience. I think that was the first time he actually traveled completely overseas, like more than 12 hours away. But it was a wonderful experience. We even went to Turkey for a hot tea, and it was just a great 3 weeks that we had together.
Now, our co-host Dinaj Leto is a world traveler. What have you had experiences like Dr. Jackson's, or you've been traveling not with another person that I know of? I think you're very brave and you've been going a lot of places alone, but you went to Dubai, you went to Italy, you went over.
Yeah. No, I've had the same experience. I can remember once in Venice, and I knew it was racism. And the thing is that because the motherland is close to these countries, you have a lot of immigrants. So when they see a Black person, they just think you're an immigrant or whatever. You just came over here from Africa to take over. So I'm walking the canals of Venice, and this old white woman walks up to me, and she starts giving me a piece of her mind. I don't know what she's saying because I don't speak Italian. And a little Shih Tzu, which I threatened to kick. But she, from her demeanor, I could tell she was giving me a mouthful. And of course, there were African vendors down the way with their wares. They'll stop on the street and they got the Rolexes and what have you. So, she just assumed. But as soon as I said, lady, I don't know what you're saying, but you better get out of my face. And she realized that was an English accent. Her whole demeanor changed, because she had just by my skin color assumed I was African. And then from the accent, even though it's Alabama, she knew I was American, and the whole affect just changed. So yeah, I've experienced that.
Yeah, same here. Same here. Can think of over in Dubai, there's a separate line for the American passport. The taxi service, the hotel service, just there is definitely almost that privilege I almost felt, just, at a higher, almost like a class level.
Oh yeah, that's a different. When you start talking Dubai, and that's a whole different.
That's right, and I was surprised. And then even in the Caribbean on some of my missionary trips, within our own people, they don't really value themselves and their own culture as much as others. And so, then there's a color, almost like the paperback test over in the Caribbean countries. And so I was sort of feeling, getting that preferential treatment. And, every time I travel, I just learn something.
Well, and
You're not going to tip well, so
Yeah.
and
That's true.
your husband was Zimbabwean,
That's correct.
and so did you do much traveling to the motherland? And no?
No, I did not. No, I did not. He was part of there was an election coming up. He was actually running for president, which is opposition, right? So, no, thank you. I'll stay.
Now, Dr. Williams, you teach at UC Davis, among other places. Now, when your students are in your presence, do racial topics come up when you teach sociology? Are those conversations on race something that you have among your students as well? I know Dr. Jackson came up through school here in Sacramento. Your work is in Davis. It's a little different population. What are your students experiencing?
Well, sociology lends itself to conversations about race. So I always start every semester by saying this class is going to teach itself. Because on any given day or any given week, like my first assignment is not, here's the textbook. My first assignment is find an article, a clip, a video that deals with the topic of race, gender, class, or inequality, right? Write a brief and then present in class. Like that's the first assignment. Because, part of what you want to show, particularly this generation, is that on the one hand, we're still dealing with these questions of race and inequality and having them identify, right, their perspective. Now, some students will come back because sometimes Davis is a little rarefied and folks come in from very privileged backgrounds. But if it's a part of the assignment and it's worth like 20 points, they're going to do it, right? So a little incentive. But when they come back, the best thing is that you're able to scaffold, right? Oh, I see. You pick this article, then you can layer in theories, right? Because when they start to talk about it, they really want to know why. How is it that prejudice persists and discrimination persists? And these questions about race that are often just black and white, but extend throughout the diaspora, right? Colorism, all of these key issues. How is that possible that we're still talking about that? And that, from a teacher's point of view, that's when you got them. Because they know that it's older than them and they're thinking, right, they're the new generation, they're young, they're vibrant, they're like, no, that doesn't affect me. But then you just found this article that identified something that really did touch you. And when they want to know the why, that's when you can start to educate.
Now, Dr. Jackson, do you ever see yourself as going back into the classroom?
Not as a classroom teacher, if anything, just to kind of, and I do that now, just to kind of talk about the pathways that people have that we're not exposed to. But no, I don't see myself going back in the classroom.
Not even to guest lecture for Dr. Williams' sociology. I mean, we love to spread your, I mean, you are such a unique person. I've never forgotten you from the first moment I saw you present. And you have such an impact on the people around you. And we're just really grateful that you took the time to be with us today. And we want you to be able to share that genius that you have. And we're going to get you back in front of the California legislature again. We're going to have to wrangle those members, because this content creation economy is something that just eludes so many of us. I mean, Dr. Mubaira did some research on it. I wouldn't even know where to begin to do research on it, but we all hear these kind of get rich quick overnight, 12-year-olds making $30 million a year and testing toys and all this stuff. And it just seems like our youth need more exposure to people like you so that they know what they're capable of. And I love that message from your mom, don't let them break your spirit, because that's what they do, even with the little microaggressions and the barbs and the comments and the disrespect. We want more strong women like you to be role models for our young people, and we just really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. Any closing comments for our audience?
I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak to the community. It's something that I've wanted to do for a while. I've been heads underwater trying to figure myself out. And so it's nice to be able just to talk to folks and really kind of share experiences. But honestly, it just comes down to, going back to my mom, don't let them break your spirit, keep finding that path, but also be epic. That's like my motto, be epic in everything you do, everything you want, everything you aspire to do, be epic, think outside the box. And that's honestly how I got to where I'm at now. When I was 29 years old, I just wanted to take myself out to dinner. That was like an epic thing for me. And now I can say that I have done that around the world by myself, almost 60 some countries. Never thought I'd be working at YouTube. Never in a million years. I wanted to, but never thought I'd actually be here. But it's because I thought to be epic. And I let other people know I am an epic person and I don't have imposter syndrome. Do not have it.
We know that. Are we going to get to meet Baby Pug today or no?
No, he's asleep. He does. He's not a morning person or morning pug.
Okay. Well, we have some listeners here. Does anyone have questions for Dr. Jackson? Everybody's being super quiet. Well, we want everyone to follow us on Instagram and we've got a brand new YouTube channel. We don't even know how to find the subscribe button to put on there. So we'll figure that out. We're on Facebook and we are on Twitter. So please, if you don't have a question right now, you could go ahead and post it and we'll follow up with Dr. Jackson. And you are invited to come back anytime, Dr. Jackson. You can co-host, you could be a guest, you can make recommendations. The floor is yours, as they say in the legislature. Oh, Dr. Norris says, be epic, everyone.
That's
I
the
love
word.
that.
I love it.
Okay, well, if we don't have any more questions for Dr. Jackson, we're going to wrap up. And Sharon, you could go ahead and hit that button. And we'll look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Conversations on Race. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be sure to look you up on LinkedIn.
Please do. I'll find you as well.